Hello English 11 students and welcome to the week 6 day 2 video. This video is for those students who were absent from our live Zoom class today. As a reminder, everything you say, do, or type is recorded, so please make sure you're keeping it school appropriate. And there is no saving, downloading, or taking pictures of our lesson at any time. Our agenda for today is the first part of the class is where I'm going to demo what's called the 2-sentence story activity. And we worked on that as an entire class. We took a short break before we completed that same activity in breakout rooms. As a couple of reminders, right, all assignments are due at the end of the live Zoom session. The deadlines for assignments are, because this is the second half of the week, right, the deadline for this assignment is 3 p.m. on Saturday, so make sure that you get it turned in by then. If you have questions, you can attend student support from 2:45 to 3:15 today, today being Thursday, or Friday as well. The breakout rooms, we'll talk about that more in the future, right? Remember, you need to show that you're engaged by either turning your camera on, using the chat, replying, or working in the document actively. If you are not engaging, you're not receiving your credit for the day's work. And you don't need to do this because we're not in a live class. I'm just going to move on. So first thing you're going to need to do is go to the English 11 homepage and then click this week's dates. Once you've done that, you'll see the assignment that says 2-sentence story activity. You go ahead and click on that. Then there will be a button that says open in a new tab. So go ahead and click on that. So the first thing I asked students was whether or not anyone had seen this movie or read this book, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. And the reason I asked that is because what the author did in this book and what happens in this movie is very similar to what we're going to kind of work with today. If you take a look at the image here on the left, the author was just kind of inspired by these really weird and kind of creepy pictures that people had taken. And so she collected a whole bunch of them and then wrote a book around the pictures, right? Which is really similar to what we're going to be doing. For our purposes today, we're going to be talking about the book that's actually called The Mysteries of Harris Burdick. So in 1984, Chris Van Allsburg discovers a collection of pictures that were designed but never actually published for a children's book publisher. Right? These are pictures that were supposed to be placed inside these really short novels and these short stories, all designed for kids. The pictures were supposed to go with these short stories, but Harris Burdick, the guy who made all the pictures, mysteriously disappeared. And so then Van Allsburg decided to basically give each picture a title and a 2-sentence story of his own. Like he just made up the stories based on the picture. And so let's check out a few of those now. So this is our first picture, right? And so the title that Van Allsburg gave this one is Mr. Linden's Library. And then when you take a look at the 2 sentences he wrote, the first one is, he had warned her about the book. Now it was too late, right? So he just wrote this title, right? And these 2 sentences. And so on the capture sheet that you see, right, the question that you're answering is what is going on in the picture that likely led Van Allsburg to write his story this way? Like, why did he choose these 2 words? Why did he give it this title, right? And what I'd like you to do is discuss 2 elements that are present in the picture that kind of make it clear, like, oh, he was probably inspired by this, right? So if you look at the sentence starter I gave you, one thing in the image that likely led Chris Van Allsburg, to write the story the way he did is blank, right? Name that thing that's in the picture. And then because, explain, what is it about that thing in the picture or the way that the picture looks or the colors or the dark and the light, etc., that kind of lends itself to that sort of thing. So pause the video here and go ahead and answer question 1 now. Okay. So you have written in your 2 responses. I kind of did the same thing, right, for myself. And I noticed basically 3 things, right? And so in my little analysis, I said that Van Allsburg was probably inspired by the very dark background and the image of an innocent girl sleeping while something creepy happens without her knowledge, right? She doesn't know that this plant is now somehow miraculously growing out of the book. So because it's got that dark background, right? And because you've got like this innocent girl and this creepy thing happening while she's sleeping, for me, that makes me think that, this picture kind of lends itself to some sort of a horror story, right? That this is not it's not a comedy, right? I see this as probably going to be like a horror story. And so that's similar to what I'm going to ask you to do in the next image, right? Our next image, right, is this one, the one that you see on the right-hand side. And so the author, Van Allsburg, he gave it the title Oscar and Alphonse, right? 2 names. And then the story he wrote, she knew it was time to send them back. The caterpillars wiggled in her hand, spelling out goodbye, right? He gave it this title and he gave it this like really interesting and kind of weird, right? Like story, but also totally unique, which is cool. And similar to what I just asked you to do with that previous picture, right? For question number 2 on your capture sheet, right? And it's got the title in there, Oscar and Alphonse. What is going on in the picture that like inspired the author to write the story this way, right? Why does he give it that title? What are at least 2 things that you see in the picture that make it clear, like, oh, he was probably inspired by this? Okay, so again, pause the video here, take a couple minutes and fill in those gaps on your response sheet. Okay, so now that you've answered question 1 and question 2, it's now your turn to do the creative part, right? You just did the analysis part, but you're now going to do a little bit of creative stuff. So I'm going to display an image on the screen. You will have 3 minutes to come up with a title for the 2-sentence story that I've created, right? So the only thing missing in what I'm going to show you on the screen is going to be the title, and I want you to write that in. There are some helpful questions that you might want to ask yourself, and you don't have to write these down anywhere, just like mentally ask yourself, right? So what is happening in the picture? Like, what does it look like is going on to you? What happened seconds before or seconds after the picture, right? Or the image, right? That might actually kind of get your creative juices going. And then lastly, what kind of story do you think I'm trying to write, right? Based on my little 2-sentence story. And how can the title help reflect that? So here's our picture, right? And so the 2-sentence story that I put together is this, right? 2 weeks had gone by with no incidents. Mark was thrown from his chair when the carpet creature struck once more. Again, you are only responsible for coming up with a title, right? So on your capture sheet, you'll notice, right, I've got sentence 1, it's already in there, and sentence 2, and all you're doing is inserting a title, right? So come up with a good title for this picture. Again, these are questions you might want to ask yourself when you're trying to figure out what's the perfect title for this, right? What's happening in the picture? What happened either before this picture or right after it in the story? And then what kind of a story do you think I'm trying to write with this picture, right? And how can the title help kind of reflect that? So take the next 3 minutes to do that. I'll start your timer. One more minute. Okay. So at this point, you should have been able to fill in some kind of a title that seems to kind of fit this short story that I've written, right, with this picture to go along with it. Let's move on to the next item. During class, I gave everyone a short break, right, for like 2 minutes just to stand and stretch. And then after we came back from the break, I asked people to kind of unmute themselves and share their story titles. You won't need to worry about that. You just need to make sure that you complete the assignment and turn it in today. So completing the activity for today, right? So again, I'm going to display an image on the screen, but this time it'll be up to you to come up with a title and a 2-sentence story for that picture or that image, okay? It says 8 minutes to come up with that, but you can just pause the video and you can take as much time as you need to make sure that you get it turned in. That was just for class. The helpful questions have changed a little bit for the picture that I'm going to show you, right? So the questions, and they'll be on the next screen as well, are, who are the characters? What is happening in the picture? What happened seconds before or what happened second after the image? And then what kind of a story do you want to tell? Because again, you're the one coming up with the story this time, okay, and the title. So here is your image, right? You, again, are going to use your capture sheet, right, to put in your 2 sentences, right, your 2-sentence story, and then insert the title of that story in the spot where it says insert title here. And to help you, right, I would start off by just doing the basics, right, answer those helpful questions. And you can jot them down if you want to, but you could also just do it mentally, right? Who are the characters, right? There are no people necessarily in that picture, but that doesn't mean that your 2-sentence story couldn't add a character, right? Maybe it's somebody within the house, or maybe it's somebody who is standing on the sidewalk as this is happening, whatever you want to do. What is happening in the picture? What happens second before this? And what happens like seconds after that picture or the image? And then again, what kind of a story do you want to tell? Do you want to tell a horror story? Do you want to tell a fantasy story? Do you want to tell a love story? Right? Whatever it is that you want to do. So pause the video here and go ahead and complete question number 4. And I will resume with you once you're done working on that. Okay. So at this point, you should be done with all 4 questions, and you can go ahead and submit that assignment on Canvas. Remember to turn the assignment in, right? If you don't turn it in or hit that submit button, I don't get to see it. The deadline for the assignment is 3 p.m. on Saturday. So again, please make sure that you turn in something, even if you didn't finish all of it. At least turn in what you did finish before 3 p.m. on Saturday so I can give you as much credit as possible. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in class soon.